right. Hopefully this is all working. And if it is, oh, it says it's starting. All right. I'm live. Good. I think I'm live. I don't know how this whole thing works, but it seems like it is. So this is Brian Germain. Hello. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with whoever has the time in your day to take a look at what we've got now for the SkydiVR system. It's really very cool. So I'm just going to assume that this is working. So here we go. I'm going to launch SkydiVR right now. And it takes a moment for it to boot up like any complex system. While it does, sip a little coffee. And so I'm going to demonstrate all the functionality that's available in the instructor type simulation. I think is quite a bit better than well, it's got more functions. So we have a lot of different possible drop zones to choose from, which is pretty cool. Skydive Spa. I haven't jumped there. See, this is one of the amazing things about it. So I can set the gear, which includes altitude that you start the simulation. You can start in the airplane, where you jump out and free fall and then open, but there's no functionality. You can't control anything at all in free fall. So I normally start just with the canopy. You can do a student parachute or one that is faster. They call it a pro, but it's only 15% faster than a student canopy. So it's actually closer to intermediate. This is just what you're wearing, the civilian. And then you can set the gear. In the winds. So so here we've got the runway. And so I'm going to go with the wind blowing down the runway at 6 knots. Upper winds a little bit stronger. Let's do 14, kind of a strong upper. And this is where I'm going to open up, right, upwind of the target. So I also can draw the pattern for students on here if I want to. That's this draw toggle mode, which is kind of cool. You could say, well, if you wanted to do a downwind and then a base and a final or whatever, you can have that. And you also have the ability to erase your squiggles. So I'm going to go ahead and start a jump. Now, I'm not using the VR goggles right now for simulations. I highly recommend that, but it's not essential. So you can do this on your own desktop. So as I look around here, you can see the ground winds and the upper winds, the direction and magnitude. You can see the compass rose, which is aligned correctly to north. And the drop zone is down behind me. One of the things that I can do is to highlight the bullseye. See number 4 key? So that's where I'm intending to land. And since I haven't started the simulation, it says ready on my altimeter. And there's a bunch of other functions that I'll show you as we get rolling here. I'm going to get rid of the bullseye. I don't really need it yet. So I'm going to start this simulation. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so I'm under canopy. First thing you should always do is look up at your parachute, see if it works. Hey, it turns. And does it flare? Yes, it flares. Here, I can even look forward and see that it changes the pitch of the system. I can also look up at the canopy and see the pilot chute moving, which is kind of a neat thing. Now, looking back at the drop zone, so I've got a long way to travel. So one might wonder, can I make it back or not? So we have a couple functions now. In an actual jump, you might look down to see if you're moving. I can see that I'm moving. You might look forward to see if the target is rising or sinking. And if I wait long enough, I can see that. I also could just click the 1 key in the VR sim. Look where I would land. See, way out there. That point is where I would land if I didn't do anything at all. So I'm on a path to overshoot, got lots of room to go. And number 2 is ground position. See that? So I can see where I am on the ground, and I certainly wouldn't want to get all the way back to the target. I'm at 3,800 feet. So look at my wrist, see? 37. So I'm going to turn the parachute, stay upwind of the target, and if you look at the direction of that I'm pointed in relationship to the wind, it changes the arrow. So in other words, where am I moving to on the earth? If I add brakes, you see now I'm backing up. I'm going backwards. And if I turn a little bit, notice the arrow changes in its orientation. Now, one of the things that I think is amazing about this simulation is that although I'm moving across the ground slightly to the left, right? I'm drifting to the left. The relative wind is coming from the front, right? So how do we simulate that? Well, number 6 key. Aha! So you can see that's the relative wind. Right? There's the canopy. That's where I'm going, sort of down and forward. But if I look down here, that's where I'm going to land. It's not the same thing. So if I was to face more into the wind, it lines up, right? So where I'm pointed and where that arrow's going, they're in alignment. But you can see this is where the relative wind is coming from. This is where I would land. Because I'm not making any progress because it's pretty windy here. If I was to do a little bit of a turn, now you can see the relative wind is still coming straight from the front, but I'm drifting to my right. Right, get it? So if I was to turn now more towards a run, now I'm moving pretty fast. I'm almost in alignment of the relative wind and the ground track. And if I was to put the landing point, see, that's where I would land if I did nothing. Notice that the relative wind is coming from a lower angle than the actual direction of motion relative to the earth. If I was to add brakes, watch that green dot. See, now I would go even further because I'm flying in brakes. And of course the relative wind slows down because I've gone to the brakes. Now I don't want to pass this target just yet. I don't need all these functions on right now, so I'm gonna turn off my landing point, right, which is right now over there. Right? That's just my current status of where I'm headed. And now I'm gonna do a little bit of a turn, and given this wind line, given the speed, I'm going to be in a very good position to hit this target. Do you see the other canopies that are down below? So if I had spiraled down into where they are, I would see highly detailed parachutes. And if I collide with them, then it's going to tell me. And you can even set it up where you get hurt. Like where basically you could black out in the simulation, or the simulation ends because you hit something. So I think it's kind of neat to be able to see the relative wind in comparison to the direction of motion across the earth. So I've created a significant offset, a little bit behind the power curve here in terms of where I am. So I'm going to ride brakes, and I'm going to let myself drift downwind. Reducing my descent rate is going to help me to go further on the downwind leg. And I'm going to get myself to where the lines, where there's 90-degree angles of where they cut the grass. So I'm going to follow that line. That should be about right. And now I'm looking pretty good. So I'm going to remove that. I don't really need that or that. And now I'm going to slowly bring myself into the wind. So I didn't do a perfect job of lining it up, did it? I'm not going to make it to the target. So one of the things you can do is pause. Oops. Pause. Oh, 35 feet. I paused. So look how far I am from the target. It's almost embarrassing. So what I'm going to do is hit the 8 key and rewind. Wish you could do this in the real jump. All right, so I'm going to move myself up to a higher altitude. Even higher. And I'm going to fly another approach. Let's do it better this time. All right, so now I'm flying again. Oops, pause. 7. There we go. All right, so I'm using the A key to turn left and the D key to turn right. If I wanted to hold a brake position, I could pull and hold like that, but I could also sort of pull and then hold, hit the S key. So now both my hands are stuck in a little bit of brakes. And I hit the S key again, and it releases the brakes. So with the actual simulation using the VR goggles, this all feels much more natural, very, very realistic. And now I've got more altitude. I'm in a pretty good location, and right now I might be a little high, right? So I could turn away a little bit and bring myself back towards the target. Ride some brakes here. Kind of flailing, aren't I? It looks sort of flaily when you're using the keys as opposed to the actual toggles. So it's a little bit better approach. This is amazing, isn't it? All right. So let's pause. Let's rewind again. What if I was to try just a little bit tighter pattern? Because it's a little windier than I thought it was. The parachute is a little slower than I'm used to, so it doesn't do everything that I would expect a canopy to do. So I'm not going to be quite so far downwind this time. When you've got wind, I think it's nice, as long as you don't have too much traffic, to set yourself up a little closer than you think you need to. And then you can use your brakes. If you've got traffic, using a lot of brakes on base and final can create problems. So obviously you want to keep an eye on that stuff. So I'm going to turn 90, let it just sort of fly across this base leg. I'm a little closer than I was before. 450 coming up now. Looking for traffic. 300 feet. And now I'm going to bring myself in the braking turn. And that looks pretty good. I'll brake a little bit more. Sink myself down to improve the accuracy. There we go. That'll do. Little corrections. Flare. Keep it symmetrical. Nice. Okay, so 31 feet from the target, 4 feet down, and horizontal speed is 5. Now we can also show flight path. So starting at the beginning of the jump, you can see where I went, staying upwind, flying downwind, playing around, down, base, final. Right? It's pretty cool. I can also zoom in so I can see that a little bit better. All right. Cool, huh? I don't even know if people can see what I'm doing here, but I thought it might be fun to at least show what's possible with this amazing simulator. Let's do another jump someplace else. Why not, right? Let's see. Where is a fun place to skydive? How about let's jump into Yosemite. I love doing this. It's not exactly skydiving training for students, but it's really fun. So I'm going to set the winds down to 0 because we're going to fly down some of the cliffs in Yosemite, and there's a landing area right here. All right, starting the simulation. All right. So the target is down to my right. I can kind of see that. And if I look forward, hit the target. Jump when ready. All right, so I just clicked A or D key. All right, so just for, I mean, this is just for excitement for most people, but for somebody like me that actually does fly in the mountains, this is good training. So there's the target down to my left. I can even highlight the bullseye. See it? That's where I'm supposed to land. And having flown this line a number of times, I know that the edge of the cliff is at about 3,500 feet. So for maximum fun factor, I'm going to stay over the edge the way we would in reality. El Capitan is off my left wrist. right, so 4,000. I'm going to come a little closer to the edge. And I'm going to fly down this wall. I get my adrenaline up a little bit when I do this thing because it's having done this kind of thing before, a lot in Norway. It's, obviously when you do it for real, it's super intense, and that intensity really can transfer to the simulation, which I think is great because then you can be doing this in a sim and reminding yourself to breathe and relax your muscles. Think about where you're going. So I notice where I'm headed and come a little closer to the rock, but I'm looking down to my right, not just at the landing area, but where I'm headed next. Okay, and if you hit the wall, in reality, obviously you die. If you hit the wall in this simulation, it ends the simulation. So, yeah, I'm going to try to be as cautious as I could without it being boring, if you fly a line down a mountain, you don't want to be bored, so you don't want to be too far away, but the first few times you do it, you're going to be extra careful. And kind of go right above this little knob. It's awesome, right? Fly along this. Now, obviously, if I turn right, I gain altitude relative to the rock. If I turn left, I die. All right, so now I'm at 2,100 feet. I'm going to... Oh, I hit the rock! How embarrassing is that? It's hard to see when you're not on the goggles. But I think you get the idea. It's really... it's phenomenal. So, yeah, for those that are interested... I think that this is an extremely helpful tool for teaching basic canopy flight. So let's say you're jumping at the ranch and the winds are like that. Kind of a medium day for jumping. The winds are kind of strong up at altitude, exiting out by the river. Can't believe I biffed in the simulation. I mean, I figure there's like a 50-50 chance that anybody's seeing this anyway. But Alright, so let's start the simulation. Go! Alright, so looking down, I can see the baseball field. Where's the drop zone? Oh no! How many students have gotten into that scenario? You look around like, I don't see the drop zone. Well, then keep doing a turn, slowly looking down and all around. It's probably near you. Keep looking. Oh, there's the airport, and I can see the smoke down to my right. Good. Alright, well, don't forget to check your parachute. Flare. Yep. Does it turn? Yep, it turns. Yep. Is there any traffic around while I'm checking my canopy? I want to do that too. Alright. And when you spiral, I gotta tell you, when you spiral in this simulation, particularly with goggles on, you can get a little dizzy. The first bunch of times that I flew with the VR goggles on, I did feel pretty bad. And then I kind of got used to it. It just, I don't know, my brain got the feel for it. So we're at 3,300 feet, right? And let's spiral a little bit more, looking for traffic. Where you look when you spiral? You look down and in front of you. Where am I going? All right, so other things that are extremely helpful, I think, is where would I land if I didn't change anything? That point out there. And the ground position, especially if you're just going to do this with a PC and not with the VR goggles. I mean, I think it's worth, $300 to buy the VR goggles for a lot of different reasons. They're wonderful. But if you're considering, as an instructor or drop zone, you're thinking about getting the simulator set up, please get the goggles, set up bungee cord toggles or something like that, and make it real for people. Get a blower fan. It keeps the goggles from fogging up, but it also helps it feel a lot more real. All right, let's see how close we can get to this target. So right now I'm using the mouse to change where I'm looking since I don't have a neck to do it. So I'm looking for traffic. I'm looking at my ground speed. And this is not a bad place to be. 1,200 feet, that's a pretty good spot. So I'm going to fly kind of a box drift pattern. A little bit of both. So I'm going to get myself a little closer to the entryway to the drop zone here, that road. 900 feet, I'm going to start my downwind leg. No traffic. Now I know that the winds near the ground here are pretty low. See, the plane's taking off. That's why we're doing a left-hand pattern, not a right-hand pattern. Starting my turn over the building. Now on the base leg, I can let it drift to my right a little bit. See, I'm letting it drift away from the target. And I'm going to slow it down just a little bit here as I slowly bring it into the wind. Okay, now I look at the target, see if I'm going to overshoot. It looks like I was a little bit. I'm S-turning like crazy because the keys are so sensitive. If you have real toggles, not so much. Alright, so 100 feet, I'm not going to do anything but let it fly. Flare. I flared a little high, but in the simulator you kind of have to flare high. 5 feet from the target. Not bad. Redeemed myself for having messed up on that mountain flying one. So yeah, I just thought this would be fun to do some simulations that people can kind of watch and get a sense of, you know, the versatility of this amazing software. And then they ask me, so Brian, what's the deal with the cost of this thing? Well, basically, it won't cost you anything to get it, but to use this software, you need to you're paying $4 a jump for each simulation. Of course, you can pause and rewind and do multiple approaches, but it's $4 a jump. You can just put some money on account, and then if you're training students, they can give you $4 or $5, $6 or whatever you think is appropriate for the coaching and training. You obviously should charge a lot for the coaching if you're good at it. You deserve it. Why not? Good coaches need to get paid so that they can keep doing what they're doing and not have to get a job, right? I'm going to set the entry point out this way a little bit. Now, if you're a drop zone that's really busy, though, I think it's a good idea to just pay for the unlimited use of this software, which is $400 a month. I think it's worth it. I mean, how much do you spend on an audible altimeter, for just one of them? And how many lives can that save? So here we go. Start another simulation. This is in France. Pretty, right? Let's check the canopy. Looks good. Any traffic in front of me? Any traffic off to my right as I do my clearing turns? Traffic to the left. See, talking your students through this stuff about where they should look and what they should be doing, how they should breathe, all that stuff's very, very helpful. Now, if I look down to the drop zone here, just making sure I have no traffic, I'm more or less upwind of the target. You can see the smoke, so you know what direction your wind is going. Landing point right now would be way out there in the mountains. And here's my parachute's heading. And see, it's off to the left, right? Because the wind is from my right. I also can see where I am on the ground. So I'm going to hook it back around. Any traffic? Nope, nobody there. I think this is also a really wonderful tool for those who are healing from an injury. You can keep flying approaches and keep your skydiving brain warm. Or if it's winter where you are, or the drop zone closed down for some other reason for a while, the plane broke, you can continue simulating. And it feels quite real. Woohoo! Looking for the traffic. Nobody's here. Because when I deploy at 5,000 feet, I'm above most of the traffic in the simulations, because those other canopies, we call robot canopies that are up there, they're real people from the past that flew approaches into this drop zone. So in other words, if they normally opened at 3,500 feet, then you're not going to have any canopies near you if you open at 5, which is somewhat realistic, isn't it? 2,400 feet. Looks good, doesn't it? But it's it's really beautiful. 23. I'm going to start heading this way. Now, again, noticing how fast I'm moving across the ground, noticing where I would land. If I add brakes, where would I land? Let's go to the brakes. Boom! Way over there, right on the other side of town. If I let off the brakes, that's where I would land. All right? Very interesting. If I was to turn 90 degrees to the wind line, there's my direction of motion. I'd be landing to the left. But if I hold this heading and add brakes, now my landing point shifts to the left. See that? It's way over there. Let off the brakes. Where does my landing point go to now? Over there. So I went further downwind, but I also drifted to my left more because I was braking. So I'm going to stay on this side of the target for the moment. And I'm going to be doing a left-hand traffic pattern with the runway on my right on final approach. Alrighty, looking good. Now I can do a 4-point boxy kind of a pattern, or I can just do a regular old downwind as long as I'm somewhere almost near where that smoke is at 900 is probably pretty close. Good enough. Alright, so starting my downwind leg here, if I realized I was too far away, I've got a tailwind, right? So I can add brakes to extend where there we go, where I'm gliding to by floating longer. See the canopy coming on final? You gotta keep your eyes open for that traffic. 600 feet. Not a bad place to be at 600. I'm going to start my turn a little bit early, almost in line with the target. I'm going through the smoke. And I'm going to drift away a little bit more, drifting to my right, letting it happen. Slowly bringing it around towards the wind line. Little turns, breathing slow. I'm not going to do anything crazy now. Just face the target, ready to flare. Flare. Yay! Alright. Oh, it's funny. I guess the way the toggles worked, it drifted a little bit to the left. There was some asymmetry in the inputs. Yeah. So, SkydiVR, I love it. I think it's awesome. I think that you guys should consider getting it. And if you're interested, send me a note. I can help you get it set up at your drop zone. There's a lot of technical stuff that Ronnie Hewen will help with, and there's a lot of functionality stuff and teaching things that I can help with. So let's bump up your game, you know, as teachers, as drop zone management. We have this technology. Let's use it. And that way the radio really will be just a backup, just a real, you know, kind of emergency sort of a thing in case somebody's kind of screwing up. But they don't tend to screw up as much if you run a bunch of these simulations beforehand. So it's cool. Thanks.